All right, guys, we're going to jump into the first Fireside chat of the morning. Brian's here from AwesomenessTV. We're going to dig in and talk a little bit about what he's got going on. Probably talk a little bit about the traffic that he faced coming down here this morning. A lot of traffic. So please welcome Brian from AwesomenessTV. Good to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Where did you think you were going this morning, by the way? When you...
A lot closer.
A lot.
Yes.
A lot more LA.
I'm very happy for the carpool lane.
Great.
Yes.
Well, welcome. We're happy to have you. Do you mind sharing a little bit about who you are, what you do?
Absolutely.
Work history, great.
I am a guy who's made a lot of film and television for too many years. Started my company, started out making shows for Nickelodeon, all that, Kenan and Kel, The Amanda Show, and it went on and on from there to Drake and Josh and iCarly and sort of what Nickelodeon live action is today. Sort of left there at Drake and Josh time and made a movie called Varsity Blues, which led to this deal at Warner Brothers, where we had our own studio within the studio. They called them a pod. And that led to Smallville and One Tree Hill and a bunch of other shows. Those two shows ran 19 seasons between them. And in a weird turn of events, about 4 years ago, my agents at UTA really wanted me to take this meeting with this kid named Fred from YouTube. And my first thought was, is my career over? Like, what happened? I just had a movie that made $150 million last month. I'm confused. And I was completely blown away by this kid, but what I was really blown away by how a kid from Omaha, Nebraska, all on his own, built this audience of, I think at the time, he was the first YouTuber to get to 1 million subscribers, and he had 500 million video views. And I was just sort of completely blown away by that, but I wasn't really gonna do anything with it. And then I went home that night, and my two sons, who at the time were, I think, 11 and 13, they had 10 kids at my house. And I just casually said, do you guys know who this guy Fred is? They all knew who he was. They all started imitating him. And something made me ask them, would you guys want to see a Fred movie? And one of the kids, without hesitation, said, tonight? And I was like, wow. So I went back to my office and I did something I'd never done in my career, which was I said, we're going to make a movie with this kid named Fred, and I'm going to pay for it. And the reason I did that was because I knew it had to be fast, and I knew I would never get the movie made in a traditional way. So that was August. The movie was done shooting by December, which is ridiculously fast.
So you missed the mark on that night, but you got it out pretty quickly.
Got it out. Licensed, ended up cutting it together, licensing it to Nickelodeon, and the movie premiered later that year and was the #1 movie for kids, teens, and tweens on television, and is still the highest rated movie in the history of Nickelodeon. From there, I met Robert Kinsel, who came over to YouTube from Google, and he was like, you should have a channel. And I was like, what's a channel? And I realized what he was trying to put together, and I said, this could be really cool. This is the first time someone like myself can start a brand outside of a big media company and really scale it. So AwesomenessTV launched 13, 14 months ago. We have now a multi-channel network under it, and combined with the main channel and that channel, we have 26 million subscribers and have done over 2 billion video views. And it's all teen and tween centric. And then earlier, about 6 months ago, we actually were acquired by DreamWorks Animation, Jeffrey Katzenberg. So I have a little sizzle reel of what awesomeness is, if you want to.
Do you guys want to jump into the sizzle reels, please? I have a couple questions I'm dying to ask.
I'm not going to ask.
Not going to answer.
It's Sarah, the tomboy here. Hey everyone, I'm Tila Dunn.
Yo, it's Audrey.
Hey everyone.
Hey,
my name's Jen.
Woo! Since when are a couple of runaways a reason to interrogate half the school?
Eat, sleep, cheer. That's my life. The right boy can be hard to find. It's important to rope him in right away.
Help! Please!
What?
Ooh.
That's how we do it.
Oh my God, can we see some more?
For sure.
Let's roll it! Yes, that happens.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Now, so two big things. One, not a big thing. What is, explain your own media consumption behavior. Are you a TV guy? Or are you a...
Mine?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
Mine is sort of, I don't watch a lot of live television. I watch sports on television.
Okay.
Right, so that's the long and the short of my live television experience. I used to watch the news, but now because of sort of Twitter and the internet,
Right.
it's, the news is sort of becomes irrelevant. You get it way before you get home. And then there's shows, there's a handful of shows that I have on my radar that I consume, right? Probably the obviously ones that everybody else is watching these days, from, you know, Homeland to Mad Men to Game of Thrones,
Right.
you know, on and on. You know, there's probably like 6 or 8 shows.
Okay,
One that just ended, which breaks my heart that it's gone. Breaking
Rules of
Bad,
Engagement?
obviously. No,
Not
yeah,
Rules?
not Rules of Engagement.
Oh.
Yes. So.
No Rules of Engagement fans there? 'Cause I'm a fan. I know that's the only
It's
programming.
good. You should be proud. Yeah.
So the reason why I ask, and I apologize for going off script a little bit, it seems like, or yesterday before you were here, we were talking about the complexity of kind of MCN, YouTube, the new like video distribution world, and it doesn't, you know, telling your story, it's kind of like, hey, there was an opportunity, felt like the right direction to go in, but there wasn't tons of quantifiable evidence to suggest that you were going to be as successful as you were. It was just kind of a gut instinct thing. Can you?
I think we have a completely different experience than most of the people who have
Right.
built these MCNs and, you know, companies, great companies like Fullscreen and Machinima and Maker. I've made content, right? I'm a producer and director, sort of filmmaker. So I came at this in a totally different way. I mean, those guys were more tech-driven companies who saw, I think, an opportunity of what was going on online. I saw it as a way to make great content and deliver it in a different way, and deliver it to an audience that I've always been making content for, but now are watching it in a different way. And you know, you asked me what my consumption habits
Right.
are, but you should have asked me what my kids' consumption habits are, because that's how I sort of got here. You know, I make television and movies, and I walk home and into my own house, and my kids don't watch linear television anymore. That's very disturbing as a guy who makes television.
Right.
My son, you know, my youngest son has a flat screen in his room, and you know, 9 out of 10 times I walk into his room, he's laying on his bed with his phone on the bridge of his nose, watching videos or even a movie. You know, he'll watch a whole movie on his phone when he has this really nice television in his room. It drives me insane, but that's sort of how I got here. I realized that you could either fight it or join it, and it's been very liberating, because now the way we make content, we're able to sort of really make a lot of stuff and make it fast and not have to be in this sort of horrible development process, whether it was television and pilot season and the way television is made and cast and so much waste. And so it's really been the most fun I've ever had. So.
That's great. Now, I think we kind of have to blame you for the iPhone on the face thing. My daughters are watching all of your programming, by the way.
That's
you're to blame.
Good. I don't think I'm to blame, but I'm glad they're watching.
So what's the role? I mean, for this audience here, so a mix of marketers, some agencies, and then partners on either the technology side or the media side. Mm-hmm. How do they fit in? How do they take advantage of this new world that you seem to have figured out pretty well?
Well, I think from the advertiser side, I mean, just to be really blunt and honest, like the reason DreamWorks bought my company, and Jeffrey Katzenberg in particular bought my company, and it happened in about 3 days from first meeting to making a deal. DreamWorks is a company that makes 2 movies a year. This next year, 3 movies. They spend $150 million to market each one of those releases. And probably of that 150, you know, at least $50 or $60 million is spent on television. Now, they know there's just an enormous amount of waste in that, right? But they're stuck in that world of there's no other way to do it, right? There's no other way to open a movie but that way.
Blast it out, right?
And there's some truth to that, but it's, if you're trying to reach kids and young teens and tweens, it's not true. So we've now built a platform, like through our channel and our MCN, we have 65 million monthly unique visitors of all kids, teens, and tweens. And I think if you're trying to reach that demo, we're a really good solution. And there's so many different ways we've been working with brands, and it's early. We're in diapers, right? I'm not saying we've conquered the world and solved all the problems, but we've had some really successful relationships so far with brands doing fun things. Like Clearasil came to us, and they had just an idea. We want to do choose your own adventure. Like, okay. So we went away and came back, and we made a 12-minute interactive choose your own adventure zombie movie for them. Girl wakes up, she's turning green, and she's turning into a zombie. So from the time we had the first meeting to the time the video was up, I don't think it was more than 4 or 5 weeks. That video was seen, a couple of million times, and I think 40% of the people who clicked on the first video went all the way through the choose your own adventure. That's crazy engagement.
Right.
So that's really, really fun. And that's the thing I'm most proud of what we built. Because a lot of people come and everybody says they have billions of views, billions of uniques, numbers.
Right.
But the engagement thing is really, I think, the key. And we got some research given to us by YouTube about 2 months ago, which showed us of all the entertainment brands on YouTube. So from network television to American Idol to Justin Bieber's Vivo channel, we have the highest engagement for kids, teens, and tweens on all of YouTube. That's the key. I mean, I think we're making stuff that kids really want to watch and come back to and talk about, and most importantly, share.
Right.
Right.
Now, do you have brands that come to you and say, I apologize. I know that this isn't your sweet spot from a career standpoint, so bear with me. But you have brands who come back and say, hey, that engagement that you're referring to, that stickiness with a consumer segment that's really important, that drove, lots of sales, or that drove lots of chatter about my brand, or that, that moved us in a positive direction. I need to be associated with Awesomeness or what, insert brand moving forward, or is it still too early?
Well, I'll give you an example. So Saturday afternoon, we're working with a company called Wet Seal. We're doing a little program with them. So there's a bunch of kids named the Janoskians. Now, I bet you not 5 people in this room know who the Janoskians are, right? They're Australian YouTubers. They're sort of the anti-boy band, they call themselves. They're sort of like Jackass meets a boy band. We do a show with them on Awesomeness. We had them make an appearance in the Beverly Center in LA at the Wet Seal Mall. We didn't advertise it. They just tweeted. One tweet. We shut down the mall. So if you've ever been to the Beverly Center, it's a huge mall in LA. So the whole first floor from one side, from the east side to the west side, was completely filled with girls to the point where they couldn't let anybody else in. They had to close the mall. That type of turnout, engagement is pretty incredible. Another example of the Wet Seal thing is we tried, we did a little test on, we have a talk show called IMO, which is sort of our teen version of The View. And there's a technology where you could click on what people are wearing on the screen, and it'll tell you what it is and where to go. So we did a little test. We didn't really advertise it. And the girls from IMO did a haul. They had 1 minute to pick their outfit from Wet Seal to wear on the show that day. And then you could click on and see what it was. We sold out the website from the clicking.
Right.
So that kind of stuff is really effective and cool. And it just shows that this audience, when they love something, they love it.
Right. Now, is a brand's only opportunity to create something that's custom? You gave an example of like a zombie segment, you know, that's basically a branded content piece. Or can they just be passively involved and like a linear kind of an advertising experience?
Oh, sure.
That both benefit an advertiser?
Sure. I mean, they could still buy pre-roll
Right.
on Awesomeness and buy pre-roll in our network. But to be honest, from where I sit when I watch it, I don't think it's the most successful way to really interact with this audience anyway.
Right. So more of the unique stuff is driving more of the engagement in your mind.
I think so. Like on that Clearasil thing, and that's the cool thing about YouTube is the comments, right? You don't get that from television. You don't have this two-way conversation. The comments on the Clearasil thing was like, that was the best commercial ever, you know? And they knew it was a commercial. You know, they knew it was still a 12-minute movie, but they knew it was it wasn't just, you know, commercial free. But they dug it, and we only mentioned, by the way, Clearasil once in the 12 minutes.
That is a long spot with
Yes.
relatively little branding.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, I think, and I'm not positive about the folks that are in the room here, but I've definitely been exposed to marketers who are pretty caught up in things like reach, which I imagine you can assume, and frequency, just getting an ad message out there over an extended period of time. I think the challenge for lots of folks is how do you migrate from those numbers that have historically proven to drive some sort of in-store sale or, you know, feet to a parking lot or retail push or whatever. How do you migrate from that to this storytelling type of an approach, which is a 12-minute ad spot, which is more about content than it is about your brand? Is there, and I know, again, tough question, perhaps for you, this is your focus area, but do you have any thoughts for these guys? Is it really like, let's land on a home run idea and see how it goes, or is there, how do you start to tackle that?
I think it is the creative process. It's sort of what we've always done, right, in making television and film. But I think that's what's unique about this time. Like when I made, you know, Smallville and all these shows, I would go to the upfront, you know, and we'd get on stage and show a big fancy video, and then you guys would spend a gazillion dollars advertising on the show. But you never really had any conversation with the people that made the show. I never spoke to advertisers. I mean, we'd go and shake hands and whatever at the upfront. Now, you know, we're sitting in a room and actually working together and like coming up with ideas, and sort of there's a great two-way conversation. I think that's what's unique about, you know, this platform, and there isn't like, you know, this huge Viacom media sales team in between us and the advertiser.
Right.
I know we like that, and I think that they do as well. So.
You recently participated, I believe, in a well-publicized event hosted by OMB.
Yes.
It was, and I don't want to butcher, from what I could tell from the trades, it was an event that was to bring content developers and marketers together, but it also was serving to contextualize some of the custom content opportunities that are available now in digital media. Can you share your perspective on it? I think it was kind of a new experience for you and helped to strike up some fairly positive discussions with marketers directly.
It was pretty cool. I think the idea around it was to have a handful of, you know, digital channels, some of the bigger ones and some like ours, to sort of present some of their custom content ideas directly to the brand. We each had, I don't know, 20 minutes to present a couple of things, and we actually hosted it at DreamWorks.
Cool.
Which was kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then it was an auction. So literally I got up and, you know, pitched these 2-3 shows that we're making in 2014, and people had paddles in the audience, and like, we're like, I'm in, I want that. And then there were roundtable discussions afterwards, but it was really effective. I mean, we had amazing feedback and are gonna do, I mean, everything that we presented got a paddle. So
you're in.
We're in.
Nice.
But it was great. I think the people, the brands really enjoyed it, because again, they got to have a conversation. You know,
Right.
They got to really talk about and learn about what our process is and who our audience really is and how we reach them. And I think cutting out the middleman is not a bad thing sometimes.
Are you talking about me?
Maybe.
The agency?
You're a good guy. You're good though. You're good. You get it.
I think that hey, listen, I've been too honest for the past 24 hours. I'll continue to be too honest, but I think oftentimes the focus of these discussions becomes less about the opportunity to do something really compelling and change, you know, your relationship with the end consumer, which is the goal, and more about how taxing it's going to be to get these things off the ground, right? The team that needs to be in place to do the, you know, to approve the script, to make sure that the brand and product positioning is appropriate, and it's a different skill set. It's a different, you know, it requires a different appetite. But I think that the ability, I think what was brilliant about the OMD solution, and certainly your participation, is that you're taking the actual value and you're bringing it directly to a person who knows how to position their brand to the consumers. And absolutely. I think we haven't always, you know, again, generally speaking, we haven't always been able to do that perfectly. We're working on it.
But that's fine. You know, I mean, it's evolving so fast.
Right.
And, you know, look, we've scaled a pretty big business in 13 months. I mean, it's a crazy world at how fast it's moving. And that's what's exciting about it. And it would be more fun if people weren't as scared of it and embraced it, but that'll happen over time.
Right. Now, you've also been vocal about the economics of living life as a channel partner relative to YouTube. Can you talk about the long-term feasibility, or what needs to change, where, you know, how you're thinking about the future?
Yes, a touchy subject. Look, the YouTube economics are not great right now, right, but I'm a big believer that they're going to be great one day, and one day really soon. But, you know, we went into this as Awesomeness, as we really looked at it as a business. You know, there's a lot of YouTube channels that, like, we're YouTubers, and, you know, I don't consider us YouTubers.
Right.
We make content that lives on YouTube, but we're a production company, and our content lives everywhere, you know, and YouTube is just one of the distribution outlets for our content. But I do see a seismic shift in 2014 from what my guys are telling me now. The dollars that are going to flow to us in 2014 just from YouTube and just from the brand integration is a big jump from 2013. Now, maybe that's because we've also scaled a pretty big audience in a year, right, but it just feels like an eyeball is an eyeball is an eyeball, and whether that eyeball is on a TV set or online or on my phone, that one day those eyeballs should be worth the same. Yep. Right? They're not now. Doesn't make any sense to me, really. I know there's the whole thing about the quality of the content, but if you look at the content we're making on our channel, it's not that, there's no difference, really, right, than content that we would make for, you know, network television.
Do you have a perspective on the best way to, like, consume the content you're developing? Is a PC experience as compelling as a 70-inch flat screen?
No, I much prefer the 70-inch right, flat screen.
Is that a personal thing, or you think that's the way your content resonates most effectively?
No, I don't think all of our content has to be seen that way, but I mean, I have a clip of a show that we that's about to air in 2 weeks that we finished a while ago. I actually see one of the stars of it right there, Chester C. I didn't know he was going to be here. He's a star and producer of it, but it's a show that I am so proud of now. And I made a lot of cool television, and this show is going to be up on YouTube in 2 weeks, and we're going to run the whole 44 minutes at once. And you should check it out, and then
let's do it. Cue the show.
This is a trailer. We're not going to show the whole 44 minutes.
Dad, this is like my 100th call. Where are you? How could you take off on us like that?
The bank in 30 days is foreclosing on the house.
Keith's had to come back from med school.
Sam, you have to go to bed.
Sucks to be in charge.
And Lexi's gone to the dark side of Skankhood. And Jason is a ticking time bomb.
It was a few weeks after Mom's funeral.
We're not okay without you.
Sit down, we're eating.
I'm not hungry.
Sit down!
As for me, things are a little odd.
Crap. was leaving, and I let him go.
No wonder we had to medicate you, you freak. You let him leave us?
Dad, please, it's time to come home.
So, you know, that's a show that's going to be on YouTube.
And you said this is a full 44.
Originally, we were going to cut it up into 5-minute episodes, and you know, I love the show so much, and I thought, like, what's the best viewing experience of this show? I mean, why are we cutting it up into 5-minute episodes? Because that's the way YouTube's supposed to work. And I said, if people want to watch this show and they like this show, they're going to watch it, whether it's 44 minutes or 5-minute episodes. So we thought the best viewing experience was to put the whole show up, and that's what we're going to do. You know, and now whether this show, you know, the rest of the episodes stay on YouTube, or, you know, this show will probably end up on linear television somewhere.
Right. So, a couple questions from there.
Okay.
One, I'm flying back tonight to New York.
You want some of those pills?
Is it possible? Is it possible to get my hands on some of those pills?
Well, you know how this show came about. Really, we were looking at the phenomenon of covers on YouTube, right? And cover songs on YouTube are huge. And we said, like, how do we take advantage of that and do something narrative? And sort of came up with this idea of, like, you know, big blended family party. So it's Party of Five meets Glee. Mom's gone, and, you know, middle daughter is having some emotional problems, and her medication is causing her musical hallucinations. But the speed in which we put this together could have never happened in the traditional world, ever, ever, ever. Like, when I met Chester and I said, we're going to make this show, and he was like, yeah. I was like, no, we're really making the show, I promise you. And we did, and, you know, 6 weeks later, we're shooting the show, so.
Yeah. Now, is a brand along for the journey on the show? Are you gonna, I mean, what 44 minutes to me, and again, not the sexiest aspect of the content, but means a whole bunch of great opportunities to potentially introduce messaging that's relevant and appropriate for the consumer that tunes in. Is that part of this yet, or?
Not in this show right now.
Okay.
But it will be as we, you know, go forward, and you know, we sort of made this show in a bubble and protected it. You know, it was like a little baby to me. So.
Right.
No.
Now, and you mentioned it already, but I want to make sure that, you know, we clarify. Is the idea to use YouTube as a testing ground, prove out the success, and then bring it to another distribution platform on air, or?
Sometimes, not necessarily. Like, we do sketch comedy every day, or almost every day on Awesomeness. We packaged that sketch comedy together with a hosted wraparounds, and that show premiered on Nickelodeon July 1st, coincidentally called AwesomenessTV. That show doubled the audience in its time period, year over year. And they gave me a terrible time slot, Monday night at 8 o'clock, because they don't know whether to love me or hate me, but I love them. And, you know, the show was just picked up for more episodes. So that's an example of, you know, how moving content. But I think it'll be both. I think ultimately we're building a brand in Awesomeness, and not unlike 25 years ago when cable started. No one knew what cable TV was, and, you know, this thing called ESPN and MTV. You know, I think that's what's happening today, or that's what's going to happen with this new generation of online channels. And I think we have a really good chance to be one of those brands that come out of this, and I think there's others. And I think people need to pay attention to them now, right? Because
now's the time to get in early. Are you open if a brand did say, hey, and you know, perhaps not the greatest idea, but hey, I want to be associated with the life of this show. I want rights and lots of flexibility.
That's the thing. There's no model. Like the guys were up here and said the model's not broken. There just isn't a model. It's kind of true. I mean, I think we're inventing it as we go along, and we're open to all kinds of partnerships. Like Side Effects, we're partners with NBC, you know, Universal on that show. They came in and they had read the script, and they were like, "Can we partner with you on this, and maybe we'll be your distribution partner internationally?" And we're like, "Great." So, yes is the answer, the long-winded answer to that.
Very cool. Yeah. Hey, I would love, if you're up for it, I would love to open up to the audience a little bit. We haven't given these guys a good opportunity to ask questions.
Sure.
Are you cool with a little
I am totally cool.
Q&A? All right. Does anyone have a question here for Brian? I mean, this is pretty unbelievable stuff. I don't know, Josh is going to hustle around with a microphone here in a moment. We got a question on table 16.
I can probably hear.
So, considering there's no advertising around side effects, is it just like a loss leader right now?
No, because it'll still have pre-roll on it, right? There's just no brand integration. But you're probably right. It'll be round one will be a loss leader, but I think the long term of that story will be, it'll probably have a very long life, hopefully, and be very successful. So.
Good morning. So just going back to I guess it's kind of a product placement, e-commerce that you're doing with the clothing. I think it was Wet Seal.
Yep.
Going back to that, I've seen about 3 or 4 attempts at that over the last, call it 10 years or so. Do you have other examples of where that's been wildly successful, and are you aware of other people that have been doing that, and whose software are you using?
It's a company called Fuse, and obviously I've the same for me. I've seen it. People have been talking about it forever. I mean, and I was sort of skeptical, but it worked. It really worked. We were shocked. We were shocked. But I guess our audience, our demo is so used to touching that screen and clicking, and they get it. They really get it. And I think we're going to be doing a lot more of it. And if that's an example of how it works, then it's pretty powerful.
And do you see, just one more follow-up to that, and then do you see that as really just working with that demographic, with that particular line of those items? Because I've seen it in household wear and a number of other things that, again, that weren't terribly successful. So I'm just wondering if you see other applications to it.
I really think this demo gets it. Like, they know how to use it. But I would say as we go on here that, as it probably improves and people know that it's there, I would imagine that it would work for other things, right? Like, I don't shop on Amazon. I'm not an online shopper at all. There's an Amazon box in front of my house every day when I come home. So my wife is very keen on that. So I would imagine if she kind of knew about this, and it would work for her.
I was just wondering how the promotion of the shows differs from how you typically would promote shows on linear television to how you promote new shows on Awesomeness.
Well, that's an awesome question. So like our show on Nickelodeon, where we really successful and able to double the time period, they didn't put a great deal of promotion behind the show because it's an acquisition, and they're not heavily invested in it. They're invested in it to work, but not financially. So we really leveraged, the talent in the show, our platform, our network, the YouTube influencers that are in the show. That show was trending worldwide on Twitter, #1 when it premiered, and continues almost every Monday night when it's on. It trends on Twitter. That's because all these YouTubers have enormous audiences that are really loyal and love them and follow them where they go. Most people thought they'll only follow them on YouTube, but now we've proven that they will follow them off YouTube, and I think that's pretty powerful.
Well, another question. Talk a little bit about the process that you go through over here to your right.
It's hard, hard to see up.
How'd you do that? That was a good trick.
Yeah, that was good, right? About the process you go through when you sit down with a brand. Like, I'm an agency, so I would come with a brand. What does that look like? How do you interact with your teams and then the talent and stuff like that? And have you guys figured out a process, or is it more organic at this point?
The process is really, when I'm in the meeting, the first thing I'll ask is, what's your goal? What do you want to do? Like, when we sat down with Clarissa, it was like, we want to make an interactive adventure. Now, that's all they had, right? And from there, we just sort of kept riffing back and forth. I think the first step is the most important step, is to really find out what do you as a brand or an advertiser really, what are you trying to accomplish, who are you trying to reach? And then it becomes the creative process that we've always had, which is start with an idea, and then you kind of write a script, and then you bring a director, a filmmaker into it, and then you bring talent into it, and then it just sort of takes on that normal process that I've done for 20 years. So.
Probably have time for one more. There's one more question. I think we're all set.
Okay.
Brian, that was awesome.
Thank you, man.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Got your hooks.